Now that it's officially June, the hot stove is warming up a little bit. You're going to start hearing some rumors about trades from these major league clubs before we even get close to the deadline. But you shouldn't wait to start making trades right now and buying low in your fantasy leagues. And we're going to aim high this week. Let's start with some legit star players that I still think you can have for a great bargain. Now, Luis Robert Jr. seems like a very obvious candidate here. You might know he was just activated from the IL. You might know that he hasn't even really played this season. He played exactly 1 week before hitting the IL and has missed every other game since. And you probably know that he's only hitting .214, even though he's a career .278 hitter, so he's going to do better. But did you know that now he might actually be switching addresses? Yeah, it's not just the positive regression. It's not just that he's healthy. It's the fact that maybe he won't actually be a White Sox player anymore. This is why we need to buy in to Luis Robert, because he's one of the more talented players in the game. I mean, he's got that power and speed, which made him a fantasy stud last year. But imagine him, but on a good team. This is according to MLB insider Jeff Passan, very credible source. Now, there's no guarantee this happens, right? But the White Sox are, quote unquote, open for business, and that includes their best hitter, Robert, and their best pitcher, Garrett Crochet. Those guys are available. You know some teams are going to strike. We got some legit contenders that could use a guy like him. The Mariners are an obvious fit. The Phillies, maybe, if they want to go all in. And let's possibly make this happen. The Braves. I mean, he's probably the closest thing to an actual replacement for Ronald Acuna in terms of talent and skill set. But look, let's at least hope that he goes somewhere, anywhere. The fact that the White Sox have been so miserable and that he's barely seen the field, I still think makes him a great buy low. Obviously, whoever's stashed him this long isn't waiting to just get a mediocre return. You're going to have to pay for his services, but I think it's going to be worth it. Now, nothing new here in the struggles of Frankie Lindor, and that goes for the Mets too. I mean, they're not White Sox level bad, but they seem like they're always more disappointing to the fan base. Right now, 10 games under 500, no signs of turning things around. I love how it just kind of amuses me how they're just ready to blow this team up already and become sellers. I don't think that necessarily will happen, and Lindor's not going anywhere. He is chipping in both the power and the speed department with 9 homers, 9 steals, but still batting under .230, and people are ready to move on in some cases. Now, I will say this. We should know that, being a slow starter, that seems more like an excuse for some players, but this is a guy who, over his career, remember he's 30 now, is a historically slow starter. In fact, let's break this down. Over Lindor's career, which now spans 10 seasons between Cleveland and the Mets, his worst months in terms of batting average are April and June. His best months, July and August. And we're not talking a small difference here. In his worst months, he averages .245, and his best months, which are the next 2 months that are about to come up on the calendar, he hits .300. That's a pretty big swing, and it looks like for his career, he actually steals more in the second half of the season. Look, if you're a Mets fan, I cannot promise you that things will get better. I can tell you I'm pretty sure Lindor will get better, and he's not really been that bad other than the batting average. That's disappointing, sure, but he's still getting you those counting stats, and now with the lineup being switched around a little bit, he's hitting leadoff. He should be scoring even more runs, especially if guys like Brandon Nimmo and JD Martinez start to heat up as well. I don't think you're getting Lindor dirt cheap like you were a couple of weeks ago, but I do still think he is a buy low and somebody definitely worth investing in now. Now let's talk about a pair of players on the team formerly known as the Montreal Expos. That's right, in Washington. We got some value here, I do believe, from the only couple of players I really feel are even worth looking at. So very similar player to Francisco Lindor. Let's look at shortstop / outfielder CJ Abrams. And despite how high he was drafted, I have heard many people complaining about CJ Abrams not putting it together, frustrated, ready to move on. So there's obviously a market out there somewhere for him. Very similar numbers to Lindor. In fact, eerily similar. He's got 9 home runs and 8 stolen bases, a .249 average. So doing slightly better, but not enough to get you excited. And, even though Washington is less disappointing, they're also probably less good than the Mets. Now, Abrams hadn't been doing that bad, but this is the time to strike because 3-game slump, hitless, dropped his average by 17 points alone, and then he missed 3 games due to a shoulder injury. So there's definitely some panic setting in from people. Now, here's my take on Abrams. I think he'll be fine. As far as batting average, I don't expect a big swing. In fact, if he's getting back to like the 260 range where he was at before his recent slump, I think that's about right. I don't think this is a player as talented as he is. It's going to hit 300, but that's okay because that's not really why you drafted him. It was for the speed and the power. Now, the power has taken a jump. It started last year, and this year he's showing even more power, which is promising. The speed is obviously there, but I'm a little concerned he's not going to steal as much as last year because already he's been caught stealing 4 times. He was caught stealing 4 times all of last season. He stole 47 bases last season, and it was only caught 4 times. He's only had 8 steals and has been caught 4 times this year. His sprint speed is actually down a little bit, so maybe we're not getting 40-plus steals, but I still think at least 25 to 30 is in the works. And again, if he's getting you 20 home runs too, and also hitting the top of the order, going to score runs, altogether, pretty nice package to have there. Now, also the main reason I'm interested in Abrams now, not just because I think this is probably the low point for his value based on how much he didn't do last week, but also this Nats team, I would really hope at some point is going to move on from these veterans, these guys who don't really belong in an everyday lineup like Joey Gallo, like Eddie Rosario, possibly others, and finally give guys like James Wood and Dylan Cruz a shot. I think this lineup has to get better. Now, on the other end, if someone's willing to sell low on Mackenzie Gore after his last start, you got to pounce now because this is definitely an overreaction. In fact, he's been dropped in some leagues. It's not like he was universally owned, which, again, I really didn't understand why. I had to talk about him multiple times on the waiver wire video until finally saw that roster rate go up. It's only 68% now. And again, some people are giving up because, again, one bad start. Gore had not given up more than 3 runs in a game all season until his last start. And in fact, in this last game, it's kind of misleading because he was pulled and then Dylan Floor, who came in relief of him, allowed all of these inherited runners to score. So he could have even gotten off the hook. But still, we're talking one bad outing. Name me a pitcher that doesn't have a bad outing the entire season. Gore has been rock solid, consistent. He isn't walking a lot of batters. He's still putting up good strikeout numbers. So I don't understand how people can give up so easily on what was once the highest pitching prospect in the game. He's just coming off of May where in 5 starts he posted a 2.60 ERA and a 1.19 whip. I mean, what more could you ask for in terms of consistency? And this was just a weird game altogether for him. He was clearly just off because it wasn't just he gave up some runs, but he actually walked 4 batters, as I mentioned, hadn't been a problem. In fact, he had not walked more than 3 guys in a game all season. This was a clear outlier. So if someone's willing to move on from him for whatever reason, just buy low. Now there's another talented young pitcher that I'm kind of convincing myself here. I think it's safe to go in, or should I say back in, on Hunter Brown of the Astros. Now, I'll come out and admit, I was a Hunter Brown fan in draft season, had him ranked higher than a lot of the other experts. I was clearly calling him a sleeper, somebody you should target late in drafts, and then all he did was wreck your ratios if you had him. You know, to talk about consistency, he's been consistently awful, and in fact, he has right now, even still, after turning things around to some extent, he still has the second worst four-seam fastball in the game, according to StatCast. But now look at StatCast. It also says that he has been underachieving. His expected ERA is a full 2 runs lower than his actual ERA. It's an adequate 4.15. And there's other underlying metrics that suggest positive regression, which we've already started to see, but got a very low strand rate and an extremely high 21% home run per fly ball rate. For reference, the league average is 10.8% home run per fly ball rate, so he's exactly doubled that number. Now, part of this is his own fault. When you have runners on base, you can do something to get out of it. You can avoid giving up taters, but look, it's going to be, to some extent, just a matter of time, matter of regression. It's already happened because his last couple of starts, we've seen much better. In fact, he's posted 3 straight quality starts, that's right, going at least 6 innings, and he's got 16 strikeouts just in the last 2 combined. This might actually be your last chance to buy low on Hunter Brown before everyone else starts to realize, hey, maybe he's not that bad after all. And this is also a case where his season-long stats are very skewed by this one ridiculously bad outing where he went just 2/3 of an inning, gave up 9 runs and 11 hits. You probably remember that. So I'm not necessarily falling all over myself to go out and get Hunter Brown, but again, get him on the cheap. I think it's worth it. You know the name of the game. It's buying low at the right time. This is when it's time to strike on some of those big name hitters. By the way, if you didn't catch it, I ranked my top 50 rest of season rankings for all hitters. I did it for pitchers earlier. If you want to know where guys like Luis Robert, CJ Abrams, Frankie Lindor, and others fall, check it out.